Hello Internet, it's Mo, and I am here today to do a tag, and this is the Vintage Sci-Fi tag in preparation for Vintage Sci-Fi Month, which is January. Just trying to encourage people to pick up and read a vintage sci-fi book, or more than one if you already tend to do that. I heard about this over at the Space Possum booktube channel, and I will link her video down below so that you guys can all go check it out. I was not tagged, but I saw this and I was super excited, so I'm making a video about it anyway. So I'm going to get right into the questions. Question number 1 is, what is the first vintage sci-fi book that you ever read? And for this, I think it would be Out of the Silent Planet by C.S. Lewis. I'm not entirely certain if this counts as a sci-fi book or if it's more space fantasy. But that would have been the first sort of sci-fi-ish trilogy I read, which I read back in high school. After that, it would have been Dune, which definitely counts as a vintage sci-fi book. Question number 2, what is your favorite vintage sci-fi book? And for this, I'm going to go with A Canticle for Leibowitz. And I know, oh my goodness, she's holding up a physical book. It does happen on rare occasions. So yes, I do actually have a paper version of this. I read this earlier this year, and I absolutely adored it. It's the best book I've read all year so far. This follows a bunch of monks, and it's futuristic, so it's set sort of in a dystopian post-apocalyptic world starting out, and people have blamed the apocalypse on the scientists and the academics, and so they have burned all these books and they've tried to destroy all of this knowledge, essentially. And this follows a bunch of monks who are smuggling and copying books and then storing them away so that when society is ready to try to pursue knowledge again, that it will be there and ready for them. And it follows them throughout a series of time periods. So it starts there, and then you get to see the sort of rediscovery of all of this knowledge, and then in the end, it's this really super high-tech world in which it is, again, threatened by apocalypse, and it's so good. And if you like science fiction and you have not read this book, please just go pick it up. I'm probably going to continue talking about this through the next few videos, because it's definitely going on my best books of the year. So yeah, you'll be hearing more about it, most likely. Question number 3. What is your favorite vintage sci-fi book cover? So when I read this question, I was like, oh, I know exactly which cover I want to put in here, and I looked it up, and it was written in 1980, and for this tag, they've defined vintage as 1979 or before, so it's not supposed to count, but I'm going to put it in here anyway, and that is The Snow Queen by Joan Divinge, I believe. And I have not read this yet. I really want to, but the cover is just gorgeous. And so since it doesn't really count, I am also going to include City by Clifford D. Simak. I'm actually currently reading this book, but I really like the cover with the robot and the dog, which does have to do with the story, by the way. Yeah, I just think it's really cool. Question number 4. This is going to be a long one. Which vintage sci-fi books are on your TBR? So I have a list, which I'm going to read off. I have The Last Man by Mary Shelley, The Time Traders by Andre Norton, The Siberiad by Stanislaw Lem, Pirates of Venus by Edgar Rice Burroughs, The Forever War by Joe Haldeman, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne, The Mysterious Island, also by Jules Verne, The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells, and The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. These are only the vintage sci-fi books that I actually have copies of. I did not include other ones that are on my to-read list that I don't have yet. So there's a few of them. So if you guys have suggestions for which ones you think that I should read next, you can leave those down below. Question number 5. How many vintage sci-fi books have you read in the past year? And I looked this one up, and I've read 6 vintage sci-fi books this year. So I feel like that's pretty decent. Maybe I'll get some more in this next year since I have so many on my TBR, but we will see. Question number 6. Where do you buy vintage sci-fi books? Well, as most of you have probably noticed, I don't generally have physical books. I read mostly on my Kindles, so I buy my vintage sci-fi books from the Kindle store. And the last question, what book will you be reading for Vintage Sci-Fi Month in January? And for that one, I'm planning on reading The Siberiad by Stanislaw Lem, but I might pick up another one as well. So yeah, we will see. For this tag, I would like to tag Michael from Bitten by a Radioactive Book. I would like to tag Jane from Yes Miss Jane, and anybody else who would like to participate. I will see you guys in another video. Happy reading!